So that is one of the ways that you can do yourself, or you can get someone to help you with. If you're struggling with something and you just need to express it, sometimes expressing it is all you need to do to cope with those things that are going on in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that 93% of what I write down goes nowhere, you know, and it ends up like I have random notebooks full with like maybe 10 songs in like every notebook everywhere, and they're all horrible, right? Like most of them I don't even add a melody to, and it's just getting things down, and I guess that's again on like the music is humanity. I mean, I think poetry, I think dance, I think any expression of vulnerability and like softness is beneficial. Um, I think I definitely use guitar as my medium, but I do believe that yeah, it not everything comes out cohesively. More often than not, most of my songs are just an emotional like release of something, and I might have one line that I identify with, and then the rest of it is a jumbled mess of crap. Um, but even that jumbled mess of crap is really, really helpful. You know, it still has its benefits. So.
Thank you, Kirsten. That's exactly where I was going to go with this next question. So, Brett and Nancy, I'd love to hear from you and this idea of music being a sort of a healthy outlet for our emotions, or a place to put our challenges or our difficulties, and whether that's playing it or listening to it or connecting with it. Thoughts on that from either of you on how it helps process some of the hard stuff?
I think I've kind of already spoken on this, but I think it definitely, it's just so multifaceted. I mean, I literally think I would have died without having music poked in my ears all day long. It just was a beautiful distraction. And in addition to that, there's the connection with people, with I guess I'm old, so I don't really, I mean, I do stream music, but I don't know about all the playlists and everything people do now, but we used to copy CDs and mail them to each other, and I have just this huge collection of music that people sent me, and then I would send it to other people, and it was definitely a connection that way. Some of it was happy music, some of it was sad music. And whatever it is, you can find the music to fit your mood or to change your mood. Through that, I have made new friends. I have learned to listen to it differently, to pick up different meanings in songs that maybe I never would have noticed before. I was only listening to the melody and not the words. So I just think it's a universal language that we can all connect through.
Yeah, and I think there's something cool there too about what Emily was just saying about the process of songwriting and coping, and then you just saying, well, no matter what you listen to, you can find music that matches what you need, which speaks to not only is music a universal language, but our experiences as humans are very universal, right? Which can help us feel a little less isolated, I think, sometimes when we go, oh, those are the words that I needed for this, that I don't have right now, but somebody else can get me there.
So true. I think when you're dealing with grief or a mental illness or struggling with depression or whatever it is, I think there's a song out there that somebody has expressed that feeling that you can listen to and feel like you're not the only one in that place.
Anything else on that piece of just music as a healthy outlet for emotion, or getting through the difficult emotions? Is there something different about music that makes it safer or easier or something like that?
I do think that it can be an abstraction, and it's much safer for me to write about something in a song than it is to use like the eye emotion language and like sit down and say like, I'm feeling this, that I can just sing about it, or find a song that sings about it, or so many outlets. But it does make it easier to confront challenging emotions when you don't have to take full responsibility for them, I believe. To sit down and look somebody in the face and state honestly how you're feeling, if that's challenge, if it's a challenging emotion, is really, really hard for me. But if I can write a song or find a song about it, and you can share that, it feels like a safer way of communicating honestly.
Sorry, Brett, to listen first. So, to tag on to what Emily was saying, when music therapists work with kids especially, the direct approach isn't always the right approach, right? So oftentimes we have to find workarounds, and especially those therapists that work with at-risk youth or trauma, kids who have trauma in their lives that are dealing with some very difficult things. Saying, hey, tell me how you're feeling is usually not going to work, right? So finding a way for them to express what they're feeling through music, whether it be rhythm, whether it be listening to something and relating to it, whether it be playing something or singing along. There's so many different ways for kids especially to engage in music that can help them understand what they're feeling and express what they're feeling, that doesn't involve just stating it, right? So that's really important for us to remember, especially with the littles that are dealing with hard emotions, that we have to be creative with how we are engaging with them when times are really difficult, which for some kids it can be.
And there's so much trust built there too, which is such a key component to making those connections and having treatment be effective. And that shared experience, again, that we've been talking about, I think can have an impact there too. Brett, what do you want to add?
I'm not sure.
But I'm sure it's going to be the
But there are so many things going through my mind. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here, and especially the panelists. I'm reflecting on some very personal experiences that I'm going through right now with family members, and thinking about how wow, I hadn't thought of music as a bridge, as a way to communicate. So I just want to start with that. Thank you for your words and that creative process. What was coming up for me earlier in relation to music as a method or a way of coping, this whole soup of resilience and well-being and belonging, that's the word that really hits the center for me. I'll just back to my lens of working with wilderness skills and kids. We teach survival skills, and there's this thing called the sacred order of survival. So break it down. You're lost in the woods, you're all by yourself, you don't have any help. What are you going to do to survive the elements and the experience? And that order, shelter, fire, water, food is the general order. It doesn't always go that way, but I started about 5 or 6 years ago teaching it a little differently, because those are about making sure that our bodies survive. But underneath all of that, I believe, is the absolute key necessity for survival as a human being is belonging. And I think when we trace any of these things that we name, depression, suicidality, mental health issues, whatever it might be, obesity, addiction, the list goes on and on. I think if you really trace it all back down, there's something in there that's struggling to experience that feeling of belonging. So anything we can do, we're talking about music tonight, but there's so many different, ways that we can experience that in our lives. But I was just thinking about back to more teenagers on a different trip, got to witness them coming back, and on this particular expedition, the staff got really fired up about song catching and sent the kids out into these, I mean, they're in the Badger Two Medicine, like the most beautiful places on the planet. And the kids are having their routine each day of going and sitting quietly by themselves in what we call their sit spot. So every day they go to the same place and have a little kind of meditative time to just reflect, journal, draw, think, whatever they want to do. And this theme emerged in this particular week where the kids were really getting into the idea of catching music and songs and bringing those back. And my own son, who's this giant, beast of a young man, who loves music, but I never really hear him sing or, tries little instrument stuff once in a while. But I'm a dad, also the camp director, but just watching this group of teenagers, the trust, the sense of belonging that they had in that place and with each other, and the way that they were open with each other and going around that circle one at a time, opening their journals and reading poetry and singing songs that they created themselves. This giant jock doing this, like it was nothing, If we'd been anywhere else in any other circumstance, that wouldn't have happened. So I think trying to, again, just lean into what we can do together, like the power of bringing ourselves together in a trust-based relationship, an environment that helps us all know that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have some struggles. And even if you don't know how to talk about it, it's okay to have it. And I think that's the key, and I hope we can all find our ways to inspire that in our own little circles.
And you guys are like doing my job for me up here. This is amazing, because that's the perfect lead into what I want to be the last question of the panel tonight before we move on to talking about some resources and finishing up, is how can we use music to help broach this kind of uncomfortable, stigmatized conversation about mental health or mental illness? Are there ways that we can use music as a tool to bring the conversation out into the open and get people more comfortable with talking about some stuff that can feel pretty difficult?
I feel about encouraging the grossness of some things. I think, like I was talking earlier, like it's a vulnerable thing to share your music, and I think sharing music, even if it's terrible, even if you can't sing, even if you look like a complete idiot dancing, dance, even if you don't know how to write poetry and all of your songs sound like garbage, write. Because that's the same, like even if your emotions aren't happy, talk about them, right? Like mental illness is not pretty. I think we've done a really good job at making it manageable so that perhaps more neurotypical or even people who aren't actively in that space of battling a challenge, in order for them to conceptualize it, I think we have to clean it up a little bit, but that is not my experience, and sometimes it feels like the only acceptable way to struggle with mental illness is to make it digestible for those not struggling with it. And that's a really, really dangerous road. Because I even felt, I was like, well, it's okay to talk about maybe like bullying, but you can't talk about sexual abuse, right? Or you can talk about like, I'm feeling sad, but you can't talk about like maybe even feeling like homicidal. There are ugly sides to this, and I think that music is that same thing where it's the expression that is beautiful. It is not the polished product that is beautiful. And so I think that's what I've noticed coming out in a lot of my songs too, is I do use like vulgar language, or it's not very melodic sometimes, and I'll post songs sometimes that I wrote like 10 minutes before and they're horrible and I've not polished them at all. But it's just that encouragement of authenticity, and that your experience is valid whether it is comfortable or not. You don't need to polish your experience in order to share it. That being said, obviously checking in with the emotional capacity of others and being aware of other people's boundaries always as well. But I think the greatest connection for music and mental health for me is that it is perfect in its existence, and you can share it in every state. And just encouraging people to not feel like they need to give a makeover on their emotions in order for them to be real.
But what I think is interesting here is that I get what you're saying, and I think that in some ways the music does polish it a little bit, right? Like you just shared a song with us that if you go back and read those lyrics, it would be like, whoa, what is she talking about? What just happened here? But the musicality of it, I'm not a musical person, so I hope that's the right word, right? But the musicality of it, the way that you gave that message to us felt much safer, even though it was a very raw, real message of struggle. So there's something in that it does make it more approachable, even when it is gross, as you said.
Totally, and I think that, that's, I've communicated a lot of things to my mom through music like that, where yes, if you read the lyrics, it's like, oh my God, my daughter, like what? But if it's in a song, it's definitely much more digestible. But I think like, I want to encourage the dirtiness of reality, and like it's muddy and it's confusing and it's not a glamorized experience of like depression or mental illness. It's really, really, really horrible and challenging to navigate, and that's why it is so incredible when you see yourself making progress. Just like learning a chord, like when you first play a chord, I tried to learn mandolin and I can't. It's so hard. But it's like when you try to play the first time and all the strings are muted and it sounds horrible, and the first time you express this challenging emotion, it's jarring and it's scary and uncomfortable for everybody involved. But then the more that you exercise those muscles of forming chords and those muscles of expressing yourself, like the more beautiful it becomes. And I think the beauty lies in the process. If everybody just started off being incredible musicians, that wouldn't be very fun. And if everybody just started off being like perfect, emotionally intelligent beings, you wouldn't see the progress, So I just, like we saw in the video, they were saying just start, You got to start somewhere. And whether that's starting making music for you, or starting listening to more music, or starting reading literature about music composition and like modalities and such, like, but I think the beauty is in the process.
Yeah, so to just summarize what Emily said, we're not perfect as people, and music is never perfect. Janan and I just performed Mozart's Requiem. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. I mean, it might have sounded like it to someone in the audience who didn't know what they were listening to, but music is never the same. It's always changing. You can never perform the same piece exactly the same way twice. Impossible, right? So music reflects us as people. It's never perfect. We are never perfect. The other thing that I wanted to point out too is that within the realm of music and engaging in music, we are in a safe environment, generally speaking, right? This is why music therapy also works very well, especially with kids, is music makes them feel safe. Music makes us feel safe most of the time. So if we can add music into our lives, we will automatically feel that sense of secure, I'm okay, in those times. And we can, and in my field, we use that to our benefit when we're working with people of any population.
So, thank you. I love that music makes us feel safe. Brett, go ahead, and then we're gonna start wrapping things up.
We're going to do a little audience participation because this is the time. All right, so please join me in creating some kind of rhythm. Quiet so we can all hear each other. This is a call and response song, so you're going to sing with me. Birds they sing at break of day, birds they sing
at the break of day.
Start again, I heard them say.
Start again, I heard them say.
Don't dwell on what has passed away,
Dwell on what has passed away.
or what
Will
is yet to be, or what is yet to be, or what is yet
is yet
to be, or what is yet to be. Let me see, the next verse is so good, but I lost the first word, so I'm gonna get it. Thank you, here. Forget your perfect offering, just sing the song that you can sing. Just
sing the song that you can sing.
there is a crack in everything.
There is a crack in everything.
That's how
That's how
the light
the light.
gets in. That's how the light gets in. That's how
That's how
the light
the light.
gets in. That's how the light gets in.
Gosh, I had thought of that. Good job, Brett. That's a beautiful way to end our panel discussion. I want to say thank you so much to the four of you for your willingness to step into this space and share with us so that we can all learn from you. We have a couple minutes left, and it's important to me as someone who works in the field of mental health to always end with some guidelines about what can you do for yourself if you're struggling. Because accessing mental health support can be difficult. And what we talked about tonight with music is an incredible protective factor, and it's a strength-based approach to being whole, healthy, resilient humans. And sometimes we need more than just the things that bring us joy in our lives. So, check in with your primary health provider. Talk to them about who therapists might be. Ask to get connected. You can call the Nate Shute Foundation and say, hey, I've got an adolescent girl, or I'm a, woman who has recently lost her husband, or gosh, I'm just struggling with life transitions, and we'll try to help match you with a therapist. Utilize telehealth opportunities. If anything came out good of COVID, this is a good thing. There's some really, really good resources that, again, feel a little bit safer maybe than visiting with a therapist in your small town. So utilizing those resources and thinking about and connecting to your own support system, which I encouraged you to do when we started tonight. Was go and talk and share about this experience with the people who are close to you, who you can lean on and process these things with. And then do what we did tonight, what all of you did so beautifully tonight, which is model that this is part of the fabric of our lives and that we're willing to have these conversations about some really pretty hard, personal, deep, raw stuff. Because that's probably the best tool we have to destigmatizing mental health. So talk about it, sing about it, play about it, and I think that gives us all a little bit more permission to say that's universal. That experience is universal. I can relate to that, and thank you all for sharing that with us tonight. I told Kirsten when we started tonight that I am a stickler for time, and we said we were going to be done at 8. So we are going to be done at 8, and that doesn't mean that people can't stick around and talk a little bit more if they would like to. But that gives us about 8 minutes. For any questions that are out there from the audience, anything that you wanted to hear that you didn't hear tonight that you'd like to hear our panelists talk a little bit about. And I can't see very well, so please feel free to just speak up if there is something out there.
I might just make a point if I could. My name's Janan Solberg, and I'm recently retired from teaching here. Talking about the sense of belonging that's so important. Right now the high school band kids are all over giving a concert. But I belong to at least 3 of these people up here on the panel. I knew Kirsten before she was born in Billings because her mom and I are musicians and sat together for many years in the symphony in Billings. Now her mom lives here. We are reconnected, and Kirsten is here too. I had the pleasure of teaching Saul Holmquist in 5th and 6th grade music, lovely girl. I had the honor of having Emily in my middle school choir, I don't know how many years ago. Too many, because it'll make me feel old. So this belonging reaches past time and place. Also, and that is so, so important. I was so proud to see my students up there articulating those things. Recently also, I went along with the music kids over to Helena to do their thing in State Music Festival. And they get to go there if they did a superior performance, pardon my back to you people. And you could have knocked me over with a feather when I saw a gal singing a vocal solo. Comes from a very difficult family situation, very difficult. I had this girl, she's a freshman. I had her at the middle school in my class literally for 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. I don't think she spoke. Very polite girl, but so, and she was, I saw her at this music festival singing a solo, and then that wasn't even the best part. I saw her leave the building with a gang of girls and go out to lunch. And that was only made possible because of belonging, because her life situation could have her going down a very different path. And I bring this up because right now there's some nonsense going on at